Hello, 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 and welcome to the My Empty Hands podcast. I am Reggie Darden, and I have with me Gary R. Gilliam, and we're just going to talk Kempo and whatever else happens to come our way. But we're just going to have a little conversation about our journeys in Kempo and where we started, and just kind of go from there. Just to kind of give a brief history on me. I started Kempo in the mid '90s, early mid '90s, in what was essentially the Tracy version of Kempo. Uh, did that for a few years and made it to my green belt, and then I left for the army. Dabbled a little bit in some taekwondo and some hapkido and some boxing. That kind of kept me satiated until I got involved in capoeira. And I've been doing capoeira for going on 17 years now. Um, about a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I refound my love for Kempo and started training again. Slapped on the old white belt and worked my way back up to just recently promoted to a green belt. So just moving right along, and uh, it makes it easy now because I can just say I'm a green belt in Kempo, and oh well, I have a green belt in this Kempo, and then I have a whatever belt in this Kempo. Now I can just say green belt in Kempo, and that makes life easy. So uh, just enjoying that. Also. Uh, Looking at getting back into some of the other arts, looking at getting back into some Hapkido and also eyeballing some Kali and some other arts. There's a lot of schools around me to, so I just need to invent the 40 hours a day, and I will be all set there. So that's just kind of a little bit of my background, and as we go along, we'll just I'll interject whatever I feel is relevant, but we'll see how that goes. So, Mr. Gilliam, let's hear your story. How did you find Kempo, or I should say, how did Kempo find you, and how did you get started, and where's that go?
It's funny you asked that. I started the martial arts back in the late '70s as a kid, very young kid. My first art that I trained in was actually Tracy Kempo. I was there for 2 years, from like 12 to 14. And I this would have been that's a long time ago. My father was really into the martial arts. He was a college wrestling coach. He had been in the military, Vietnam era military policeman. He'd done Aikido and Kempo. He'd done other Kempo and other with other people, and so he trained me for about 4 years of my growing up formally. Like I have a son that I have actually got three arts I teach. I teach a Kempo karate system. I teach a Hapkido system, and also Korean martial arts in general. Uh, like I taught my son, my father taught me. My son's black belt under me in the Korean arts. He prefers the Korean arts. He doesn't like Kempo that much. He's a big, tall, 6'4". And he's not like stringy either. He's like he's a big, powerfully built young man, and he's quite good in the Korean martial arts. He likes he heads toward the Hapkido and the Taekwondo. Kempo was my first art that I trained in, and I've been training now with my master Gary Cox for 21 years. And I started training with him. Now I love Gary Cox. I consider me just a lowly nothing disciple of my master Gary Cox. He's my everything I do is pretty much attempt pathetically to make him proud, and you know do for him. You know, he teaches kind of a hybrid of Parker, Tracy, Japanese karate. He trained with Mike Stone for quite a while. He was in the military, so he teaches kind of a eclectic Kempo system. I
Okay.
mean, it's Kempo karate, but it's
Hmm.
it's a hybrid Kempo karate system. And he calls the system Kiai Karate. That's why I call my system Kiai Karate Integrated Fist. but he called his system Ki Karate. He knows. I've spoken with some of the old timers. They know who he is, and they've seen him at like the internationals and stuff. He was a solid Kempo person. Like we at Ki try to keep it real humble. The name Ki has to do with the spiritual energy and all that. And we're really big about humility. I mean, we're nothing special. I especially nothing. My master's something special. I am really nothing. But I really have tried to do the martial arts. I've been with him 21 years. Before I got with him when I got out of the Army. I was in. We've talked about our Army stories. You were a Panama boy. You you
Yeah, I
you chewed
got a little time in the
you chewed
Panama.
some you chewed some Panama dirt. I was in Germany and Korea. When I got back from Korea 20 something years ago, I started training with him, and I've trained with him nonstop ever since. I've had other people. I cross train a lot. I'm what you would call a collective. I'm a Kempo karate guy, but I'm more eclectic. Before I trained with him, I had about 20 years of training, and out of that, about 9 was in Kempo. Tracy or Parker Kempo karate. But I'd also done probably my second art, if I had to say. I've also trained in Japanese karate, Okinawan karate, things like that. But mostly, I was always in my mind. It was kind of adding that to the Kempo. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I always consider myself a Kempo guy. I'm built kind of like Parker. I'm like 6'1", and I'm even when I'm before I put on some extra, I put on a few extra pounds. I've always been a little more heavily built, so Kempo just really naturally took to me. As you can see, I don't know if will the visuals be on it or will this
This
just
will
be
just be audio, but
audio?
for the listeners, we've got a perfect weapon poster in the background there. So definitely
Yeah,
representing
I've had
Jeff
that poster
Speakman.
up for years. Jeff Speakman is I was telling you before the thing. I first got into like every kid my age, David Carradine, Kwai Chang Caine, that got us kids our age interested into I was a little kid. My dad we would go watch Kung Fu, in 1972, 73, and I'd go in there and I would watch. I can still remember. That episode where he fights that demon. That where he fights that. It's a
Vaguely,
real scary, the scary creature, whatever it is.
Kung Fu was a little bit, I'm familiar with it, and I watched it a little bit. It was a little bit before
Little before, but
my
yeah,
time, but
I was
I'm
5.
familiar with it. I'm
I was
familiar
about
with it
5 on
enough.
season
Yeah.
2, but there was this episode where this real scary. He has like a basic what I only thing I compare it to is Trip, where he fights this creature, and it scared me to death at 5. But it really got me interested. But the two if I had 2 heroes that I really we were just talking about this before, and that I think are just should have had a better movie career in the martial arts was Jim Kelly off of Enter the Dragon, and he did other stuff, And the other one, of course, is Jeff Speakman. I idolize Jeff Speakman.
Yeah, no. For me, seeing the perfect weapon is why I got started in Kempo. Buddy of mine, I've always been a fan of the martial arts and martial arts movies, and just, I always wanted to do it. Supposedly, I can't verify this, but the story, when I would
as
ask
you
my
understand,
father, as my, I would ask my father growing up to let me train in the martial arts, and he would always say no. And he claimed that his reason was that he used to be a bodyguard for Muhammad Ali, and he, at that time,
okay,
yeah,
intriguing.
at that time, martial arts were starting to get popular in America. He says that some of the other guys that were in Muhammad Ali's employ would talk about, oh well, like I'm working on this karate stuff and I'm learning how to kill people and rip their hearts out. And so he always had this idea in his mind that martial arts were just all about killing. And so he turned me down, but I wore him down. It only took me about 15 years to wear him down, and he finally let me get involved in Kempo, and I was just enamored ever since. And I actually didn't get to start right away. So me and my buddy saw The Perfect Weapon and found a school, and he got signed up and didn't yet have the approval, but I would be at the school from when they opened to when they closed, and I would watch all the classes and stuff, and I would just absorb what I could. And then my friend, you know don't tell my instructor, but
This is us, between us.
he kind of he'd slip me a little information here and there, and I had a pretty good sense of what I was getting into before I actually officially signed up. Um, but I guess it kind of works out in the end, because most of my private lessons, my friend was my instructor, so that helped. But yeah, big big thanks to The Perfect Weapon for getting me started on this path.
Kempo specifically, it's funny you say it because Kempo specifically, I was going to say earlier, my two, if I had to choose what the two arts that are the most influenced me would be Kempo, Parker Kempo, and Korean martial arts.
Mhm.
I trained for 3 years in Korea, and when I say Korean, I want to clarify, I don't mean these modern day Olympic Taekwondo. Korean's a
Mm,
misunderstood art. No, both, Hapkido is an excellent martial art in itself. I earned my second dan I earned in Korea with a Korean master, but Taekwondo is a lot more when it's done correct. I learned it more how, like, I was in the military and I trained with more, like more the military segment of it. Taekwondo is not the sport stuff you see or the
mm,
kid stuff you see. It's got a. I don't believe any art is so deadly. I mean, I that's part of my. I don't like any hype in the martial arts. I hate hype in the martial arts. Nobody's so deadly. One of the things we learned in the army. You can vouch for this. It is so hard to kill somebody. Okay, I mean, we were both, we both had jobs that were. I was a forward observer and you were a commo, so we were both trained more for realism. People, like, there's instances in combat people blown in half and still fighting. You know what I'm saying? So the idea that you can kill somebody, I don't like that. But I will say Korean martial arts are far better than people think. Does that make sense? About the strongest opinion I'll ever make about a martial art is I'll never say like, oh, it's so deadly you can't say. I'll say it's a solid, or quite good, or it has sound principles, because I don't. I mean, I believe you can be very effective with martial arts. I have and can protect myself with martial arts. But you can, all of us can. But I don't like the hype or the mystique of how deadly you are with the martial arts. I mean, you can get to where you can hit pretty hard and you can bob and weave and fade and evade, and like you can get in and get out of a fight. But that's about. There's not a whole lot more. So I'm pretty. I get really skeptical if somebody says it's just so deadly. But Korean martial arts are solid, as is Kempo. How, like, oh, and I love all Kempo people, and what I'm about to say I do not mean as a negative thing. What I'm about to say, this is not negative, because I still think even bad Kempo has something to offer. But I do, if I were like, if you were to see me do it, if one watches me, I tend to be a little harder, more hard. Each technique is more hard. Does that make sense? If I'm doing a knife and I'm not just
yes.
whipping it out, I'm doing it harder with each move. I try to do it with some speed, but I do with each move with a, identity with each move. I probably am not as friendly to the super flashy, flippy, fast Kempo. I mean, I can make my hands go very fast, and I understand the point of it, but I'm probably a little more of the hard Kempo. Does that make sense? Do you see what I'm saying? Is that,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, a
yeah.
little
I
bit
think.
more. I've had some some internal Chinese stuff where I just practiced. It helps you get a little more relaxed. So there is something to the relaxed power, but I tend to prefer a little bit more of the karate hardness of Kempo as opposed to the more flashy. But I don't think flashy Kempo sucks either. I don't get into this art sucks or that art sucks.
Hmm.
For me, I'm a bigger, larger man. I'm 6'1", and
It's okay. We
but
can we
yeah,
can edit that out.
no, it's okay. No, I'm
Yeah,
6'1",
yeah.
and I've lost a lot of weight. I'm starting to lose a lot of weight. I got diabetes. I got real heavy for a while, and I've been losing a lot of weight. But I'm never, even at my thinnest, I'm never what you would call petite. I'm
Mhm.
always
No, I'm
a-
right there
you know
with you.
yeah, I'm a build. I'm more of a Parker-ish build as opposed to a Bruce Lee build. But I do like to keep, I like Kempo is a lot better. Like online, you see people talk negative. I have seen Kempo work very well in fights, and Kempo is a quite good art. I don't buy that any art's going to get you killed, and I don't buy that any art's going to kill people. I think that most arts, if they're done right, can have some element of effectiveness. For me, I do have one thing that if I have one way, I get along with most of the Kempo world and generally the martial arts world in general. You know, if there's one way that I differ or where I have some division, is I have developed with my master Cox's permission is the Kempo karate I teach is just less techniques, just half the techniques, or like we teach only 70 techniques. I told you about this last time, and they are more jab, cross, hook. I mean, no, we do more than just jab, cross, hook, but they are developed in a combination attack pattern as opposed to the really laid out long and sometimes convoluted. I don't like to use that word. For me, a simplistic minded person like me, they're more complicated than I do. Okay, to say it like that.
Gotcha.
So I've had some people. We also have gotten rid of some of the traditional. I mean, we do some of the traditional Kempo kata, but some we don't, and we do some of our own, and we only do a total of, or I only teach, and all of this is my master Cox. Let me do this. I only teach 8 kata total. Okay, and of those, some are Parker and some are stuff developed by Master Cox and Robert Hermanson. He's used most of them in like the Parker Internationals and stuff, but we're very big on simplicity in our system. Okay, that's something, but it still takes the comparable amount of time, to get, like, if you were to come in and train with me, it would take about the same time, but your time is not going to be spent as much doing just individual self-defense techniques. You'll do some, and you'll learn those. You'll also learn the katas. We have some sets that are ours and some Parker sets. We'll do those, but most of the time is going to be spent on what I call live or hard, hard realistic training, sparring. So it's going to take about the same amount of time, and you're going to be a little bit more hard, not quite so, we still do a lot of that stuff, what I did, but
Gotcha.
a lot of, but it's more going to be like, do you see the difference? You see what I mean, it's hard to explain the kinesthetic difference, but we're going to be doing a more of a hard, each technique's going to have more of a hard component, and that it's not going to be as many moves per technique. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I've had some have agreed, but I'm very clear that we're not teaching traditional EPAC. I'm very clear on that. Okay.
Gotcha.
But
so for me, coming from or having trained in both sides or both styles, I'm always curious about schools that combine or mix and match. Would you say that there's, like, what would you say is maybe the breakdown? This percentage of Tracy, this
of
percentage of
mine,
EPAC.
mine specifically, mean?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Here's how I would say it. I would say pretty much it's Parker in principle. You know what I'm saying? Like all of it. Like Gary, like my master Robert Hermanson knew Ed Parker, and he trained with Tom Garriga, and Tom Garriga taught my master Gary Cox. That kind of thing. What I would say, here's how I explain it. Pretty much all the kata, even the ones that were developed by Gary Cox, are still Parker principles. If that makes any sense. I mean, it's all Parker. Okay. Where I think my system is, the way I teach it, a little bit the way Gary Cox taught it, but I took it to the next levels. I do a lot of my Kihan, or the term Kihan. You've heard the term Kihan. I do a lot of the principles that would be Korean and Japanese karate. Like, for example, when we do like an outward knife hand, I deliberately do more the Japanese, the Okinawan or Japanese component to it. I do it with more of the feel and the flavor and the kinesthesia of that. Or if I do the like the single biggest difference between Japanese karate and Korean karate. I don't mean Kempo. I'm talking about, this is just Koreans elongate their techniques more. You've done some Taekwondo. They tend to elongate even their hand techniques. it's a misconception that Koreans do nothing but foot technique. That's not correct.
Mhm.
They do a pretty decent amount of hand techniques. The biggest difference is their hand techniques are more elongated for the purpose they're more elongated for the purpose of a little bit more distance. They like to keep a little more distance, mid to long range versus the short to tight range of karate and whatnot. So it's all pretty much Parker. The difference is we do a lot of the Kihon or a lot of the basics are from Japanese, Okinawan, or Korean, specifically Korean. I trained a lot in the Korean martial arts, but there's
Yeah.
still combinations are still Parker in both. If that makes any sense.
Okay. So would it be, I guess, fair to say the kind of the Tracy part is the smaller percentage, and it
Oh, much
it
smaller. Yeah,
leans more.
much smaller. I mean, my master trained in some Tracy stuff, and so he adds some of the that's a much smaller part of it. Yeah, it's a little
Okay.
bit, but much smaller part. The exact components I don't know, but I wouldn't be able to say exactly.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
it's a much smaller Tracy. I mean, he trained some Tracy people, and all that. But
Mhm.
we're not a Tracy school. We're more into the Parker stuff.
Okay, okay, okay. And then any kind of other arts that are, or maybe some of the other arts that are integrated or
Right.
to
That's
be
okay.
to
That's a
be
great
integrated.
question. Yes. One of my students is I trained with him now here in Salt Lake. I trained with him. He's actually he trained with a world class Thai master, a guy from Thailand. His name was Sakasem Kanthwan. His name is James Foster. He taught me some of the knees and elbows of Thai, and I was learning some Thai principles. I want you to say I've never done any ring Thai or anything like that. I just have
Hmm.
cross trained in Thai because I
Hmm.
like Thai really well. So he taught me some of the principles that how to implicate or integrate it into Kempo, some of the knees and elbows. But I'm not a Thai person. I want to be clear on that. But some of the
Okay.
the concepts of the elbows and the knees come from Thai. I've trained with some Filipino Kali people, and by nature or by organic nature, Kempo automatically has some Filipino in it. Like Parker trained with Filipino people, so I integrated some of the Filipino concepts I trained separately. I also integrate into the Filipino components of Parker, and then a lot of it. Well, you'll get this because my time in the army. I took a lot of the philosophies from the army. Realism and some of the mentality of army training. I put it into my what I teach. So.
Yeah, that's something that I've always said that I like about Kempo. I love about Kempo is that it makes a good base for connecting with other arts and
Mm-hmm.
other philosophies, and it just fits really well with uh, making the art your own, and not being held to specific traditions. Not
Mm-hmm.
everything works for every person in every scenario, and what setup or what organization, what style works for you is going to be different for me, which is going to be different for the next person. But Kempo makes a really great foundation to feed that exploration and that modification, and really fitting things to the individual. So I really like that. I really like that the not everyone is set on just keeping it a certain way, and allowing having that room to grow and to whatever it needs.
One thing that's very important, as long as you're clear that you're not now, if you're doing Kempo, I don't care what type of Kempo, you need to be clear that you are like if somebody is somebody cannot claim to be teaching Ed Parker American Kempo Karate unless he's teaching all of the techniques. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
all the extension, everything. But if somebody is saying they teach a Kempo karate system based on Parker, that's different. That's that is
Yeah,
for the court of public opinion. But it's very important you're very clear. Whatever you're doing, you got to be very clear on whatever you're doing.
exactly. So what did as far as getting into teaching, was that kind of something that you were always wanting to do, or did it you know
That's funny. I have a strange teaching style. How I got into teaching, like I said, I've been doing. If you were to take I'm 56 now. I've been doing about 41 years of martial arts training. Take everything.
Hmm.
I have an uncle named Steve Bigelow. Now he helped. I don't know if you've ever heard of a school called. It's called Executive Security International. It's a bodyguard school. He
Yeah,
started
sounds familiar.
Okay, yeah, he started a bodyguard school, and him and my brother, my younger brother, he connected with my uncle Steve in the early '90s, and they trained together for. He taught my brother for like 5 years, and then we started a system called. They started a system called Eclectic Combat Systems. And basically, it was a blend. It was a very eclectic system. My uncle had been one of the first Hwarang Do. You've heard of Hwarang Do.
Hmm.
It's like a Hapkido.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm familiar with
He was
that.
one of the first Hwarang Do people, and he was also doing Muay Thai and Kali before it was really well known. My brother had been a really good wrestler in high school. He'd also been doing martial arts, and he was now has he's a high ranked black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and
Hmm.
he's a high ranked. He does sambo, and he's done some Kodokan judo stuff. He's pretty high ranked in his stuff. But the two of them started a school, and they asked me to just be one of the striking instructors. So I was certified under them as a striking instructor, and that's when I first started it. And I really enjoyed it. We had a pretty good sized schools in Arizona. We had a pretty good sized school. There was like 20 people at any given time, and I would help teach some of the just. It was more like a reality based or hand to hand combat. At that point, I had about 10. I was 26. I had about
Hmm.
11 years of various martial arts training, and I enjoyed doing it. And then I've taught a lot of privates. I prefer to teach privates or very small groups. I have taught formal classroom settings, but I prefer, even to this day, I will teach maybe 4 or 5 students at a time. I like a very small, but a
Hmm.
very, intimate group of students. I love doing that. I don't like the formal classroom teaching setting as much. I have done it, but um, I don't like it as much. I'd much rather have a small, like maybe 3 people that I teach at a time.
Hmm.
And I like to kind of mentor them and take them down their path and work with them. I tried doing some online stuff. I'm shying away. I don't do online anymore. I made one big mistake with one person that I don't really do distance teaching anymore. Like
Hmm.
if somebody is already a very high advanced rank and they want to cross train with me, they're already a high advanced rank in another system. They want to cross train me. I'll cross train with them. But
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't really do distance training. But most of my stuff is small groups by choice
Gotcha. And
because I
is
would rather
that?
not teach. I would rather not teach at all than have to deal with the crap of classes. You know what I'm saying? I like teach a very small. I prefer either a very athletic or already trained martial artist to teach. But I can take from the beginning. But I prefer
Mhm.
people who already have martial arts skills.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Um, is there any particular reason why you prefer the smaller classes, or just mainly kind of logistical, or?
I'd have to say when I don't have a lot of patience for people who are just kind of they kind of want to play around with it, and they kind of do, but they kind of don't. I like I have a student, that Muay Thai student. He actually teaches MMA, teaches MMA classes and stuff. He teaches people in larger groups. I taught him Kempo. He taught me Thai. Some people like doing it. I like very serious people that I can really share what I know, as opposed to a group of people that might or might not get it. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I like tailoring each person I like tailoring each person like with their natural strengths or natural weaknesses. I like to see what works for them, how to get it working best for them, and that kind of thing. I love taking somebody from, a lack of knowledge. I've actually taught formally. I've taught in the school, teaching.
Gotcha.
I just really enjoy helping people understand, but I preferably, I like to work with people that are already martial artists, and I can just add my skill or what I know into there.
Mhm.
But I can teach both. But I just I I don't make enough money for this teaching to really make a difference. It's not for me for the money at all.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
I may make a little bit, but I mean nothing, next to nothing. For me, it is purely the love of the art. I like teaching a very small group of very serious students.
Gotcha. Since kind of touched on it a little bit, it just kind of made me
Mhm.
think about. Um, so with the popularity or the growth of MMA, um, have you seen like what kind of changes have you seen with you know how how I guess not just new students, but how students kind of approach taking art now with MMA's popularity versus
I have to be
the quote unquote
honest with,
old school.
yeah. I okay, that's funny you say it because you're gonna be surprised. You might be surprised because I really admire and respect MMA quite a bit actually. Um, but you have to understand where I'm coming from. My father was had been a college wrestling coach, which means you had to be really good. He was a junior
Hmm.
college wrestling coach. He had also boxed. He had done the military. He had done was in the military, and he'd done like I said, like, like old school aikido and old school karate. So his mentality. I liked boxing too. I liked wrestling. I wrestled in high school. I did some high school. I wasn't a great high school wrestler, but I've enough to get a wrestled 3 seasons. I got enough to understand what wrestling's about, and I liked Thai before it was popular. Does that make sense? Like I I've I I what I like about MMA so much is anybody who's good, if you're good from any system, if you're a good Kempo guy, if you're a good Korean stylist, if you're good karate, if you're good karate, whatever style, MMA people are going to give you respect because they understand there's just principles that work. You know what I'm saying? Like there are just principles that work. I've had a good relationship. I mean, there are. Oh, I've had a couple. Like like I've done. I put my videos online and stuff. I had a few like, oh, he's fat or whatever, though. That technique won't work. I mean, you get some of that, but that's always been said. I mean, that's not the fault of it. It's always since martial arts were in America, everybody was showing how somebody couldn't do that or somebody could. I like MMA. Now I don't do it. I'm just old, so karate works great for me, and it happens to be Kempo karate is the karate I chose to do. But I don't have like I did some Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I did got my 3 stripe white belt in it. Um, I liked it. I don't teach I do not teach grappling. Okay, I learned some in the army. I've worked with some really good grapplers that were seriously good grapplers. My brother is an excellent grappler. I worked with him. I've worked with others. I don't teach it because I'm not good enough to teach grappling. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I probably could teach a basic ground like get on top and elbow him kind of. I mean, but that's
Mm.
I believe in leaving what
Is that
leaving the experts.
something that you may integrate in the future? As you get more
I integrate it
experience,
in
or
this way. I integrate it like if I get taken down, I'm very glad I've trained enough in grappling. If I get taken down, I am confident I have some at least some kind of fighting chance.
Mhm,
But no, I just like teaching karate. I just like I'm a karate man, through and through.
mhm,
It happens to be Kempo, but I also like Korean karate. I've also done very good like old school Korean karate and Hapkido. I like the traditional arts. I do think that well done and correctly done traditional arts of any kind. I don't care if they're Kempo. I don't care if they're Okinawa. I don't care if they're Korean. If they're done right, they're going to have a lot of the same stuff that works in MMA. It's
mhm,
the same athletic principles. But I haven't had much of a problem with it. I'm probably one of the few people that I do consider myself a karate guy. I do consider myself more traditional. I love MMA. I
mhm.
think it's a great idea, I mean, I don't like some of the theatrics. Like by that I mean like people yelling and screaming at each other. There can
Yeah.
be it lost some of the traditional philosophy of the martial arts in some ways. But I'm a big fan of MMA. I'm a big fan of I think that the best thing ever happened. But what it also did is it did 2 things for karate. Either it did one of 2 things. Either it reminded karate that you need to be open-minded to things like ground fighting. I had wrestled in high school. I knew enough about ground fighting that I knew that my dad had taught me wrestling as a kid too. I mean, I knew enough that if I got taken down even as a kid from wrestling, I had some. So I never really had the hostility towards MMA that some karate people might have.
Mhm,
Um, and I liked that MMA taught that karate people need wrestling and BJJ and whatever sambo, whatever the grappling art is. But so it taught that you needed to open your mind and not be. It took the traditional, pure, like orthodox, like you can only train in one style. It took it out. That got
Yeah.
it. People's minds understand now you can't do that. But at the same token, somebody who does karate, whatever style, like me, I love karate. I love what I do. I will not do anything. I love Kempo. I love Ed Parker. I love that man. I tried really hard to honor him and some of his principles. But I like it because I like it, not because it's cool. Does that make sense? I like
Yes.
karate because I like karate. I like Korean martial arts because I trained in Korea, and I like the Korean martial arts because I like the Korean martial arts. So anybody now who likes karate or whatever is not doing it because they think they're going to learn something where you can kill somebody. They're learning it because they like that's the two good things I think that MMA brought
Mhm.
to the martial arts world.
Do you see a change in the students because of it? And so, in the way that I kind of see it, I
Mm,
see MMA as its own thing. I don't see it
mm.
as a martial art, so to
All right,
speak,
agreed.
in the regards that you don't you don't necessarily get the same, how would I word it, respect, or uh, maybe not so much tradition, but there's just there's a different attitude
I see what you're
with
getting at.
with
Yeah.
the martial arts, with the mixed, excuse me, with the MMA, versus your traditional martial arts, in that maybe the MMA is more trying to push the theatrics and the
Yeah. Yeah. I see what you
competition
mean. Yeah.
side,
Competition. Competition. Yeah.
and so that kind of, since you're focused on trying to win, you're less focused on trying to be a better person,
All
have
right.
a
I'll
have a
answer
better
that.
spirit.
Okay. Number one, when I was younger, all I cared about is whether I could fight. I did little smokers and things like that. And, I used to do a lot of banging, going to different schools and, doing little challenge. I say with air quotes, challenge matches. It's funny
Mhm.
now because I was just a dumb kid. But that mentality is essential for kids. So I don't think there's such a problem with it, especially for young kids. If I'm 56, if I want to go out and compete and my, and I'm you know that became my focus. If I lived, 'cause I have bad
Mhm.
bad health. If I lived, it probably would be not a great use of my time. At
Mhm.
56, I'm very happy learning karate. I'm going back and learning kata. I hated kata forever.
Mhm.
So for their age, I think it's very good. You know, I think it's always existed in some form. It was kickboxing before that, boxing before that, full contact karate. I think there's always been a venue for that. The only difference is MMA does a great job of combining the grappling and the striking. But I think if you're 21, of course that's going to matter. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like there's going to be some 21-year-olds that don't care about that. They just want to train or they just want to learn. But it's a necessary venue, so I don't have a problem with it. They've done a really good job. I really respect MMA because they don't karate and well done karate. If it's well done, I mean, if it's still gets a voice and if it works, they'll use it in the MMA. I like that.
Mhm.
Uh, and like I said, I've known some MMA guys that I couldn't have asked for nicer guys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if I had a problem with him, it was just personality clashes. You know what I'm saying? So
Gotcha.
I've had a good relationship with myself. I've had good experiences online. I've had a couple MMA people like, oh, Campo will get you killed. And I'm like, hey man, dude, I'm 56. I don't even care what you think. And I
Mhm.
usually become friends with them because usually they're pretty good guys. Um, so that's number one, is that it's just the age. I mean, I would rather have a 22-year-old have a venue like MMA than pretending like pretending like they're just learning character. When you start getting older, then it starts mattering more, the character development. But if you do the old school karate as I learned it back in the early 80s, 70s, 80s, that stuff was supposed to be pretty hard hitting. Okay, it was
Mhm.
supposed to be, it was so well done karate is going to have concepts that will transfer over to MMA. Okay. And MMA has done a great job transferring because it brings, like, let's say somebody hits 28, 29, wants to learn karate. They're going to bring some really good skills from MMA. Like I said, my
Mhm.
father was a college wrestling coach. He loved karate. He loved Kempo. He said it was a tremendous fighting art. Okay. Because he understood that, because he knew how to grab somebody and, on a seriously wrestle with them and do like army judo or whatever, the stuff you learn in the army. And, he
Hmm.
could do what he had to do and then start doing some of those gouges and rips. I mean, he understood how good it was. So, so number two, it does a really good job of integrating. Good karate should be able to integrate into MMA, and good MMA should be able to integrate into karate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So realistic, like Parker did judo and boxing. He loved contact stuff. Okay, Parker was
Hmm.
a tough contact guy. Same with a lot of the kempo guys. Like
Hmm.
some of these old kempo guys floating around are just tougher than most people can even imagine.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
So, but the third thing is, yes, I wish that MMA. There's some segments of MMA that I wish would go back to the more respectful,
Hmm.
humble side of it. But I would not say that that's the preponderance of MMA. I'd say most MMA are okay. As long as what we need to do. I'm not a Kempo person that thinks we need to make MMA light. I do not believe that. Okay, I
Hmm.
believe we should do Kempo as it stands. If you want to do it like I do, which is, I believe in simplifying Kempo. I think Kempo's gotten way too complicated. That's my thing. I
Okay.
think Kempo's way too complicated. I've had people strongly disagree. Some famous Kempo people do not agree with me on that. People
Hmm.
say they dislike my attitude about it. So
That's
with
fine.
me, I think it needs to be a lot more simple. So that I'll argue about all day long. But I do think that what we as Kempo people need to do is we need to keep producing good, hard hitting Kempo. That Kempo is if you look at the Kempo's history, we've had some pretty good people come out of Kempo, Tracy
Hmm.
and Parker, some
Hmm.
pretty tough people. So I think that we just need to continue producing more time doing hard sparring and hard training, and less time worrying about where we fit, like where people like us or not, and B, we need to make sure that we're learning a small. This is my blurb. This is where a smaller number of techniques, but learn them really well. Okay,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
and you can disagree or agree. You can say your opinion or whatever. I very much respect your opinion on things.
Yeah. No.
You're one of my
No.
favorite people in the Kempo too.
Oh, yeah.
So
Well,
I
why,
love
thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So to kind of head towards our final questions here.
Hmm.
First one being, do you have a favorite technique or a favorite couple of techniques?
I don't know why I like parting wings. I don't know why it's one of my favorite. I
Huh?
just
Yeah.
I
No.
like it. But I see it as ripping out the eyes or attacking the throat and then moving and doing the
Yeah.
parting wings would
No.
be one of them.
That's a great one.
I really like, if I had to choose, like I do not do long four. Okay, we don't do long four in the
Hmm.
system. I'm very familiar with it. If I had to choose a kata for me, kempo kata that I like the best, I'd have to say long two.
Gotcha.
I love the concepts of long two. I think I think people need to spend a lot of time doing that, because that's a really good, in my opinion, it has really good kihan, good basics, good
Hmm.
simplicity, everything about it.
Hmm. Yeah. No,
So that'd be
I
my
like that
favorite
one.
kata, and my favorite set is finger set. Finger
Yeah.
set too,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah,
Yeah. Very
because I
nice.
like
Very
those
nice.
gouges, and. But the thing
Very nice.
about kempo, and I want to say about finger set or any of these, if you don't have, you need to. That's why I like MMA so much. Why I like boxing, and why I like old school karate. 'Cause karate was the same way. Is if you don't have that same ability to throw jab, cross hooks, if you don't have some of that aliveness, or I hate that word aliveness because everybody uses it, but that if you can't throw a halfway decent jab, you're not going to get anybody in the eye. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Exactly.
So you need to spend a lot of your time sparring and actually doing really like actual physical hands-on drills, and then the stuff from finger set will
Hmm.
uh will work really well. You know.
Okay. Gotcha. And so our final question is, if there is anyone, living or not, fictional or non-fictional, that you could train with, who would that be?
Okay, I'm gonna name about five. Is that okay?
That, of course.
Oh, shit. I'm gonna go on a list. Okay. First and foremost, of course, Ed Parker.
Mhm.
What can you say? I have every single Ed Parker video I can get. My master Robert Hermanson's told me about him. Gary Cox had met him, and he just was the guy is criminally underrated. The one thing, I'm not blaming MMA people, but I know a lot of people online that talk about what they would do to Grandmaster Parker. What they would do to him. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
if they got a hold of him. I will guarantee you that man was scary. Okay, that
Mhm.
man was scary. Uh, the other one is Jeff Speakman. I idolize
Mhm.
Jeff Speakman. I probably would turn into a bowl of Jello. I probably wouldn't. I'd probably just like, Mr. Speakman, sir. I have Asperger's and I'm a little shy. That's one of the reasons why martial arts was so good for me, is because having Asperger's. I don't know if that's a mild form of autism. I was always a little bit awkward. I was always. I mean, I got lucky. I dated a lot. I've been able to.
Mhm.
I was able to go through my bachelor's and most of my master's because of my Asperger's. I have the ability to conceptually think, but I sometimes get a little bit nervous or a little bit shy, and I would just be so shy of Master Speakman, I wouldn't even know what to do. But he'd be another one. I love. Now, I want to clarify. I do not teach grappling, but
Mhm.
I love how he saw the importance of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I
Mhm.
love the art. You know what I'm saying? I love the art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I just don't. And I won't change. I have no interest in teaching it. I would
Yeah,
just tell
no,
somebody
that's fine.
go with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu person and do
That's
that.
fine. Yeah.
Another one. Okay, now I'm going to probably get Kempo people hating me here, but what inspired me? There's two things that inspired me to simplify Kempo. First off, Gary Cox and Robert Hermanson believed in a simpler Kempo. Both of them. They believed it had gotten too complicated. There's an art called Weichi-Ryu. I don't know if you ever heard. I think we talked about it. You and I
Mhm.
talked about it. It's a very simplistic Okinawan art it is not the same as Kempo, but there are concepts that you can see in it that would be similar to Kempo. They're a very simplified system. Now I'm using, of course, the Kempo concept, and like, but I would love to train with with Kane Weichi, the founder of the system. I believe it's Kanbun. Kanbun, I think, is the son, and Kane is the father. I would like to train with the father, the founder of
Mhm.
him. The other one is Masoyama. I
Oh, yeah.
love Masoyama. I love Kyokushin. I love all
Mhm.
that. And the third one, I love the Korean martial arts. I do teach Kempo, but I really have integrated a lot of the more combative components of Korean karate into what I teach in Kempo. And also, I teach Hapkido too. I'm actually a Hapkido
Mhm.
instructor too. But the there's a guy named Dok Sung Son. Dok Sung Son. He was one of
Mhm.
the pioneers of Taekwondo. I think Muda Kwan, I believe he was. But he taught that really hard. It was still Korean. It was still Taekwondo. He would be the other one that I would love to train with. You know. And then there's one more. I love this man. His name is Doc Ron Chappelle. Okay.
Mhm.
I
Gotcha.
idolize him. He is so nice to me because, like, I have some academic background. He's got I love his academic background. I
Mhm.
like to do cut and paste research into Parker and into whatever, I try to be pretty, reasonably correct in what I'm saying. I try to
Mhm.
validate what I say. And Doc Ron Chappelle, his physical is excellent. He's got excellent uh, technique, but his academic understanding is just amazing. And I would love, mostly with him, I just appreciate him so much. He's always shown me so much kindness, so much respect. I'm nothing, I'm just another Kempo instructor out there, but he
Mhm.
always answers my questions. He's always shown me respect. I will always love that man, and he's correct on things. Like I may say, oh, like academically, I believe that karate is I put karate, I mean, it's obvious that Kempo is Kung Fu, Hawaiian martial arts, Chinese martial arts, well, of course, Okinawan, Japanese, blend of all that.
Mhm.
I put the percentage of karate higher than most would. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not a pure karate system, but the proportion, the ratio of karate in my Gary world, okay, GRG
Mhm.
world is higher. And I may say to Doc Chappelle, like, as I understand it, and he never mocks me or anything. He'll just say, "Oh, either yes or no," or he's just a really good guy. I love that man. To me, he's my favorite Kempo. my,
All right.
I idolize Larry Tatum. I think he's great,
Mhm.
but my body type is, he's got more of like that real fast.
Mhm.
The guys watching him is literally like watching it's like watching Shakespeare write a poem. Like
Mhm.
to me, Larry Tatum is a Shakespeare poem of Kempo. So I don't relate with his movements at all,
Mhm.
but I really like him. I have more of a hard Korean, and like my movements are a little more hard. And the last one is Mohammed Tabatabai. I think he
Yes.
is just. I'm a large guy like he is, and I have watched his videos, and
Hmm.
a very nice guy, and I don't do it right. I am not, but I try to have some of the same concepts he does. I
Hmm.
weakly empathetically try.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. Well, I thank you for your time, and thank you for being on and sharing your story with me and whoever else may be listening to this. Uh, I'm just overjoyed to get to talk to you and also get to talk to all these other wonderful
To the
people that
Kempo
are
world,
going to be on.
I'm gonna say something about you. To the Kempo, I love this man. This man, Reggie Darden, represents the highest end of human nature.
No, thank
He
you.
represents our higher ends of ourself. He's the man trying to bring together people and just bring love. And I just appreciate you. I don't think three people. I'll be surprised if three people listen to me, but I am honored to get a chance to share, and I'm flattered that you think I was worth the time to share. So